Hey, it's Mrs. Elward again with the second half of our profit margin notes. This is 9.2b. It's our second lesson of the week. So, the net profit margin for an individual item is far less straightforward. The problem is there's no absolute way of determining how much of a business's overhead expenses should be attributed to any given item. How much of the electric bill or rent or insurance should be attributed to one dress sold for $65? One simple method of doing this is called proportionate allocation. This assumes that expenses should be attributed to each item sold in proportion to the overall sales. So, really, all you have to do is take that expense percent as a decimal and multiply it to the sale price. So, let's give this a try. So Eddie's bike shop expenses were 29.8% of sales. Assuming that the management allocates expenses in proportion to sales, what would be the expenses attributed to a bike that sold for $279.95? Very simple. All we have to do is multiply. So 279.95, and we're going to multiply by 0.298, which will give us 83.43. That's all you have to do. Okay. Now, sometimes they don't give you that expense percent and you have to find it. So we just use our expense formula. Remember, expenses over sales times 100. So in the year in which a dress sold for $65, the total sales were $219,540 and expenses were $63,073. If expenses are allotted in proportion to sales, how much of the store's expenses are attributed to that dress? So first we have to find our expense percent. And we're going to have 63.73 divided by 219,540 times by 100. Now, there's a couple different ways you can go about doing this. Okay. So we have our 63.73 divided by 219,540, and we multiply by 100. Oops, I hit it twice. Kind of ignore that second line. So our expense percent is 28.73%. So when we go to find our proportion of allocation, or we can do our $65 times the 0.2873. So 65 times 0.2873, and that gives us $18.67. Okay, now I know that some of you are going to do this instead. Follow me on my calculator. I'm going to clear that out since I hit too many buttons. You're going to do your expenses, the 63.73 divided by your sales, the 219,540. You're going to get your decimal. You're going to leave it as a decimal, and then you're going to multiply by $65. It still happens to be 1867. A lot of times it's not always going to be that way, and that's okay. It may be a decimal or two off. It happens on the homework twice. And I've put both answers there. So it's really a matter of your method that you prefer to do. And I'm not going to take off for either method. So if you want to round to two decimal places and then convert back and multiply, that's fine. If you want to leave it as the whole decimal and then multiply by that cost or that retail price, go for it. Either way, if you're a decimal or two off, depending on which method you use, I don't care. You use whichever method you're more comfortable with. Okay. Technically, this one's more accurate. But you choose. All right. So here we go. So the total sales for clothing company for 1 year were 1,387,293, and their expenses were $101,299. If expenses were allocated in proportion to sales, how much of the store's expenses were attributed to a jacket that sells for $129. Okay, so expenses divided by sales times by 100. So we got to get that expense percent. Okay, so 101, 299 divided by 1,387,293 times 100. Trying to find a good spot with light that you can see the calculator on the screen. All right, so you can leave it like that, or you can multiply by 100. So 7.3%. And then we take our dress price, the 129, excuse me, multiply by our decimal. So 129 times 0.073 gets us $9.42. And again, if you just wanted to do the 129 times that decimal from before, it's still going to give you the 942 in this case. Okay, so both ways are fine. Okay. All right, so the last topic on profit margin is what happens if we choose to mark up our selling price based on this idea of gross profit margin. Okay, so once the expenses as a percent of sales are known, the management can determine a gross profit margin which will be adequate to meet expenses and profitable goals. All right, so that will take into consideration not just the profit you want to earn, but also cover your expenses that you need to cover. So determine a price by using a target gross profit margin is called markup based on selling price. Okay, so we have this special formula where it's C equals SP times 1 minus R. C is selling price, C is cost, SP is selling price, and the R in this case is our gross profit margin as a decimal. Okay, so make sure when you're doing your assignment for 9.2b that you're using this formula. When you get to the challenge task, I typically have this markup based on selling price in bold or italicized to clue you in to come up and use this formula and not just the basic markup formula, but the markup based on selling price formula. They're two different things. You get a close answer, but they're not the same. All right. Okay, so let's give it a whirl. So determine the selling price of an item costing $45 to have a 35% gross profit margin. All right, so cost is $45. Selling price is what we want. 1 minus 0.35. All right, so 1 minus 0.35 is 0.65. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.65. And our selling price will be $69.23. So raising it up to that amount will give us the profit that we want and take in our expenses. Okay. A cooperative market allows its members to place special orders for items they want to buy in bulk. The price the member pays is based on an 8% markup on selling price. Lynn orders a case of protein bars for which the markup's cost was $24.17. How much will she pay for this order? All right, so the original cost is $24.17. We're going to find the selling price that she buys it for in 1 minus 0.08. 1 minus 0.08 is 0.92, so that's what we'll divide by. So we get a selling price for Lynn of $26.27. And our last example for the day, find the retail price of an item whose wholesale cost is $41.06 if the markup based on selling price is 32.5%. All right, so 41.06 equals selling price, 1 minus 0.325. So 1 minus 0.325 is 0.675. So that's what we'll divide by. And we got a selling price, of $60.83. So that rounds out profit margin and this week's lessons. So you have your 9.2a and 9.2b assignments, plus the challenge task that covers last week's assignments and this week's assignments. Please make sure you read things carefully. Let me know what you need help on. Email me and log on to office hours 2 to 3 o'clock. Really, it doesn't matter what day of the week. It can be Monday through Friday. I'm going to take off the daily restrictions. So log on any day, and I'll be there to help you. Okay. And look forward to talking to you guys soon. Bye.